You are watching Access LaPorte County Channel 97. Coming up next is the May 28th meeting for the Michigan City Sanitary Board. You can find more information for this meeting by visiting www.accesslaportecounty.org.
Yeah, he's going to be ready. Early, so. All right. Good afternoon, Michigan City, Indiana. And welcome to our Sanitary District Board of Directors meeting. Board of Commissioners, excuse me, this is our regular meeting. I appreciate all of you in attendance. We have a great board here that's dedicated to a great future for our city and a great staff. So with that, I'm going to call the meeting to order. I'm going to skip the roll call and that just to make for the notes that every commissioner is in attendance, so everyone's here. And I'm going to defer to our legal counsel. We had an executive committee meeting beforehand. If you would like to make a couple comments.
Yes, and do you all, as board members, certify that there was nothing discussed during our executive session other than the information included in the posted and advertised notice? If you dissent, you can say so. If you agree, you can move forward with the meeting.
All those in favor of moving ahead?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay. All right, thank you. All right, so if I could ask for a motion for approval of the minutes for the executive session and the regular meeting that were held on April 23rd.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from the executive session held Wednesday, April 23rd.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. And then for the regular meeting on the same day?
Same thing, same motion. Same second.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes from the regular meeting, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, for public comment, before we get into public comment, just a clarification here. If you have, so this is the general public comment period. If you have an issue relative to a specific item on the agenda, let it be known now, and we will allow public comment at that specific agenda item. But if it's a generic comment, please, you're welcome to do so now. Yes, sir. Name and address?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dave Bila. I live at 3044 Ohio Street. I'm former Michigan City Councilman. One of my issues that I've been working on for the last 45 years is stormwater. I have some problems with stormwater here in the city of Michigan City, whereas, in my opinion, roughly a third of the landmass in Michigan City is incorporated with stormwater and it's not being controlled. In 2021, I presented to the then board of the Sanitary District pictures of clogged up ditches. And this is 2021. I recently presented those same pictures to a member of the board here in 2025, and nothing's been accomplished. In reading the responsibility of the sanitary district, the storm sewer management program specifically says the developer or owner, which is the city of Michigan City, because in the early 70s they took over the responsibility of cleaning out ditches, shall not block, impede, flow, or alter construction of any structure without any material or object, or commit any to affect normal water flow. I have presented to the board recently, and someplace in your records you have old pictures, because I presented like 7 or 8 pictures to all the board members, numerous pictures of impediments in the water flow down Kinsel Ditch. Well, there are numerous impediments in the flow of the water from the Market Mall office building down Kinsel Ditch or Monon Ditch, which includes the base of the Monon Railroad track, which has not been completely lowered because there's a waterfall in that specific area. I pointed these out, and as of yet nothing is done, but yet the responsibility of the sanitary district is to maintain ditches. I personally would like to know why This hasn't been done over the last 5 years. In reading the stormwater management program in conjunction with Strebel Pond, it says pertaining to Strebel Pond, and Strebel Pond is roughly 68 foot higher than the level of Lake Michigan. And in my opinion, and I believe in all your opinion, water runs downhill, but it doesn't run downhill in the city of Michigan City because you've got numerous impediments in the flow of the water running downhill, such as the pictures that I provided to the sanitary district. I, as a taxpayer, and all of the other residents of the city of Michigan City who have their basements flooded, I would like some resolution.
Do you have a flooded basement?
Pardon me?
Is your basement flooded?
It has, normally in the spring of the year, when the water flow doesn't go.
This year, have we had that?
I know, because we've had an extremely dry year this year.
I was just curious.
What I'm pointing out is those pictures that I took in 2021 was when my basement was flooded. And you've got numerous individuals in the Riviera Drive area, in the Village Green area, that still have flooded basements. As recently as about a week or so ago, I owned some property on the corner of Barker and Poplar. My tenants informed me that their basement was flooded. Okay, that specific area is in the west side moraine. The west side moraine is a ridge line from the J.M.R. Ruby property all the way up to St. Stan's Church, all the way up to Lake Michigan. There's a gigantic concaved area. Water runs downhill, but not on the west side of Michigan City. In my opinion, the sanitary district has a problem because they are not addressing the water flow to the west.
All right.
They address the water flow to the east.
All right, so I'm going to just, I appreciate the concerns in you coming and presenting to us. Let us take this up with our staff, and hopefully we'll have some response at our next meeting or maybe the following meeting. Because I know this isn't my suspicion is it's going to take some research on our part to at least give an answer to what your concern is, but I assure you we will get an answer.
During the Perry's administration, I took all this information to him. He suggested at the time that I then discuss it with the sanitary district. Since we had a turnover in manpower in the sanitary district, what I'm providing to you guys is something new.
No, I appreciate it. That's why I'm asking for a little
Sure.
time for us to.
And I, as a concerned citizen, a taxpayer of Michigan City, would like to be included in that conversation, if at all possible.
Let us do our research, and we will report back.
Very good, thank you.
So is that, Chris, is that fair enough?
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hello, Scott Mellon, 200 Kennedy Place, esteemed sanitary board members and city engineer. Respectfully, Mr. Chairman, I would say not much research is required to clear a drainage ditch that is part of regular maintenance. That would seem to be a pretty clear answer. That said, we're proposing at this point, we'll know more when the consultant speaks later today, the latest estimate, but a new sanitary plant upgrade in excess of $100 million. You heard it here first, folks. It's probably not optional. Storm water treatment is a very important thing for a municipality to deal with. It's a big investment. My question is, how are we proposing to pay for that? I know this is probably too early, you're not going to have answers to this, but how are we proposing to pay for this $101 million project? What type of proposed rates increases will the people of Michigan City be seeing over what period of time? I think that's the most important question here. Secondarily, I would ask on another matter, one of the things that I've learned in coming to these meetings is that the decorative medians on the boulevard, on Michigan Boulevard, somehow the maintenance is the responsibility of the sanitary district, if I have heard this correctly. I don't know.
I'll give you a little history on that. That decision was made in the Muir administration because, frankly, they weren't being very well maintained. And at the time, the sanitary district, the decision was made to put that here. I think we can all agree that they look a lot better, and are, they're actually part of the beautification of the city. I'm not sure exactly what your concern is, because the city's.
I'm all for beautification. My concern is it doesn't seem to be a core competency or requirement of a sanitary district to maintain the tulips. I would submit that probably vector control or some other department would be better suited for that and take that responsibility away from you as you're figuring out how to pay for a $101 million sewer treatment plant. That's all. I think it's an unfair burden that is put on the sanitary district. That's how it seems to me.
Okay.
It just doesn't seem like it belongs.
Okay.
That's all I have for now. Thank you.
All right. Well, more to come on our upgrades for our plan. We are working on our long-term plan for the sanitary district, and that as we develop that, we will have a broad base of communications and likely some workshops, but that process is still to be determined. Appreciate you paying attention to what we're talking about there, because we take our jobs very seriously here, and we have a great staff that wants to provide good service to the citizens of Michigan City, and we're going to look to do the best we can with whatever scarce resources we have. So, thank you. Anything else to add, Chris?
No, sir.
Chris or Wendy or Rhonda?
I will say this to Scott's point. We have been looking across, I will say the landscape, no pun intended, about how we do maintain a variety of, whether they be planters or planters that also serve as stormwater management. Sometimes there's a fine line when you look at previous green infrastructure attempts, and so we're sensitive to that and kind of have pulled our resources together and are funding, having some help through a landscaping contract so we can evaluate that and then better resource that next year. So,
Thank you.
that's all I have.
All right, any other public comment? Hearing none, thank you very much, I appreciate the comments. So if we could move on to item 5, the financial report, Rhonda?
Yes, the April 2025 cash balance is for the sanitary district, $1,804,487.12. And on the refuge side, $1,792,806.84.
Thank you. So we have some money in the bank.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Harris, Harris Law Firm, monthly retainer invoice, or is this more of a Chris question? Maybe that's probably a bit more appropriate.
I think we could do a little bit of both if you like, but I'll let you start.
I'll do it. So invoice 10996 doesn't require any board action. It was already approved. That's for the retainer. And then invoices 11034 through 11040. The services that Harris provided for us for these different projects is listed in the board packet, and the total for those invoices is $4,781.25, and we recommend approval.
And if I could add to that, just so for ease of reference, if you look in your packet, the second page, technically the third page, is a summary sheet that outlines all the different areas of service to get you to the $4,781.25. And you'll see that there are some key projects. I just want to make sure you're looking at the right thing, just so you know how to read. Yeah. Yes.
This one has a summary list of
Yep.
337, 112, 112.
Yes. So when we submit the invoices, it's per matter or whatever the issue is that we've been asked to look at. One of those areas is the issue of delinquent accounts for the sanitary district. We've been working with Wendy Boucher on that quite a bit. coming up with a comprehensive plan on how to best address some of those issues regarding delinquent accounts, some of which have been delinquent for quite some time. We worked with our superintendent on the issue of a leachate agreement, which is a new revenue source for the district. And that's another area where it's not something typical that comes before the board, but I think you're all familiar with that new leachate with Forest Lawn Landfill. In addition, we've been working with Al Wallace on issues related to sewer easement agreements. On sewer easement agreements, as well as certain annexation areas. And then we had a situation regarding a tax sale property at 2120 Ohio Street, and we did some work relative to protecting the district's interest in that property. And that's that.
Thank you. Just a comment, the summary is quite detailed. I do appreciate the summary at the front end relative to, and then the additional detail.
Yeah, there's an hour after that.
Thank you.
Telling exactly what we did.
All right, so what's the pleasure of the board?
Move to approve invoice for Harris Law Firm 11034 through 11040, the amount of $4,781.25.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Christopher Burke, Engineering, Wastewater Storm Progress Report.
Christopher Burke's progress report is included in the board packet, and specifically they assisted us with sanitary sewer plans, emergency repair documents, review of the draft NPDES permit, land application assistant, and for that work, they submitted invoice number 38280 for the amount of $8,062.50, and that is within the amount that was approved, the budget amount approved earlier this year, and we recommend approval.
All right, so what's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion that we approve invoice number 38280 in the amount of $8,062.60.
I think it's 50, but it's okay.
50 cents?
50 cents, yeah.
50 cents, apologize, 50 cents.
I will second that amended motion.
All right, any further discussion, questions? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. And then the progress report, MS4?
Yes. Christopher Burke also provided assistance related to our MS4 program on the annual report, stormwater prevention plans, and other MS associated requests for assistance. And the invoice for that work is forthcoming, and there is ongoing work plan on the continuation of the 2025 MS4 services. But there's no invoice, but they did submit the progress report.
So I guess the question is, are you satisfied with the status and the report?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, we are.
So that's just an update for us?
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, MS Consultants Incorporated, progress report of preliminary engineering.
Yes, good evening. Dan Cutshall with MS. Real quick report. I'll have a more formal report next month. In response to the gentleman's question about how we paid for a $101 million sewer project, that's very important. We're in the middle of a rate study. I was hoping to have some information for you this evening, but the guys doing the rate study said that next month I'll be able to give you guys a lot more information on where we're at. So you'll have a lot more formal response next month.
Okay. But even with that report, we'll still have future decisions to make relative to what we go ahead with.
Yes.
And how.
Correct.
Thank you.
There may be options to do certain things at certain times and options to do other things later on. So we'll just have to make those decisions once we see what the impact of the rates are.
Okay.
Any questions on where we're at with anything? really haven't done a whole lot this month other than waiting on that report from the rate study.
Sure.
So
Any questions, concerns?
I think the invoice that you've got here to approve should be our last one on the preliminary engineering report. So, thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Dan.
And invoice associated with that work is number 61-04G30-00-7 in the amount of $10,450 and we recommend approval.
All right, so that's in line with our budget.
Yes.
All right, so what's the pleasure of the board?
Move to approve MS Consultants invoice as Rhonda stated for the amount of $10,450.
I'll second it.
Seconded, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. Snyder Geomatics.
Let's come up front.
Yeah, please.
I want to introduce Alonzo.
Good evening, guys.
Alonzo's
Nice to
helping
meet
out
you.
with the project, so
Familiar
we
with some of you.
on that case quite a bit.
Okay,
Just wanted to put a face to a name.
thank you.
Highway 12, still, like last month, we're still in the pre-construction phase of things. There's some NDOT permitting, there's railroad permitting, just things like that that we're still working through to take a little bit of time. Shop drawings are probably 95% reviewed though. I know the contractor has ordered structures already. And NIPSCO, I anticipate NIPSCO is going to be out probably in about a month. They just to bring the three-phase across the road and then bring the gas. The gas is already on the north side of the road, but bring that up. They just want to get it done early. We'll be staking, when they get ready, we'll stake the lift station, in the driveway. And then they're working on getting an NDOT traffic control permit. And once they have that, they'll move forward to work quickly. So I anticipate July-ish, something like that.
Okay, thank you. So just for the public, Route 12 and the intersection is that Lake Street or where's the?
That's around F Street.
Okay, F Street.
Yeah, it's right across the street from Burnham Brewery.
Thank you. Okay.
Yep.
Just so want people to have a general sense for where.
No, that's probably a better reference is the restaurant, the bar, yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's right across the street from there.
All right.
Okay.
Any questions, comments? Well, nice meeting you and thank you for your attendance and the update. It's much appreciated. Yeah. Thank you.
We got more.
Thank you. Progress. All right, Michigan City Annexed Area Sewer Extension.
So, there was
Invoices.
yeah, two invoices.
Oh, excuse me, thank you.
Two invoices related to the engineering consultant work that they provided, number 196274 for $11,955, and invoice number 194579R for $480, and we recommend approval.
All right, what's the pleasure of the board?
Move to approve the two Snyder invoices as stated, 196274 for $7,100 and 194579R for $480.
All right, moved. Is there a second? No, second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you.
Yeah.
And then are you going to give us the update on the annexed area?
I am, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, annexed area actually is, progress has been very good. Essentially, the sewer is from the starting point up to Highway 20. Essentially, the boring across Mott's Parkway it's essentially completed. We've always got to dig up and set a manhole, and then there's one short section of steel pipe. Contractor did have some issues getting through. There was just some soil issue.
Yeah, I remember that.
But they are, they're through it now. It's taken care of, they're through that. Next steps are to move to the other side of Highway 20, get some grading and cleanup work done where the sewer's already gone in. And then we're still working on the jack and bore permit across Highway 20. NDOT has come back and required a settlement monitoring plan. We're working on getting that prepared, getting traffic control and all that. Once that's done, they'll come back and do the bore.
So excuse me, what's a jack and bore?
You got the pipe, And there's a big drill that goes through the pipe and it pulls the dirt out and the pipe gets pushed as the dirt comes out.
Oh, okay, okay, so you,
It's like an auger, it's like a giant auger that
I
goes
got
into
you,
the
so it's just
casing.
kind of, it's a worm, it's
Pushing
goes
this
way through and dragging it.
pushing pipe through once they.
Yeah,
gotcha.
it's
Okay.
kind of just pulling the dirt as it pushes. Kinda
Until it
like,
hits something, right?
yeah, until it does.
It don't hurt us.
Yeah, that's a problem if it does.
Yeah,
But yeah, that's what they're doing. Yeah, it's the same method they use in Highway 20.
great, no, that's wonderful.
Okay. I'll move on to a change order. There is a second change order from Ray Riley. I've got good news, 2 months in a row. This change order also results in a contract cost reduction.
Nice.
Significantly. And I think this is like a $34,000 cost reduction. There were some design changes in the design that resulted in a decrease in some structures and the amount of work that needed to happen.
Great.
But that will need approval.
So Rhonda, your recommendation?
Yes, we recommend approval for that change order that will save money.
All right, and I don't know if the rights was, we have to vote on the change order?
Yes, you do.
Let's, so, and you, let me make sure that I understand this, because change orders are sensitive sometimes relative to management. So I'm assuming since you approved it, that you're on the front end of agreeing to the change in scope, then what?
Yes.
Okay. All right, what's the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to approve the change order, changing the bid from $44,778.21 to $34,562.21.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And then we have a couple of invoices.
Yes, invoice number 3620457-2 to Reeve Riley Construction Company. This is payment number 2 for $444,367.70, and we recommend approval.
All right, and the pleasure of the board.
I make a motion to approve Reeve Riley's invoice number 2 for the MCAS project in the amount of $445,367.70.
Move, is there a second?
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, then we have invoice 196273.
Yes, that invoice is for Schneider Geomatics for their engineering consulting work for $14,652.50, and we recommend it.
All right, let's see, pleasure of the board.
I'll move to approve Snyder Geomatics invoice number 196273 in the amount of $14,652.50.
Second.
And seconded, thank you. This is a full board participation, so it's all good. Everybody's alert and paying attention, so we're watching them. All right, so it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Alonzo, a little more participation next time. That's awesome, so.
Next time he's on his own.
That's good. All right. Michigan City Sanitary Projects Operations and Inspection Report. Projects. Annex and tree clearing.
L.
Can you pull a couple chairs up real quick?
So the first item on your agenda is related to the MCAS project, kind of following up on the discussions we just had with Schneider Geomatics, in the sense that prior to starting the project with Schneider Geomatics and Reeve Riley, some land clearing had to be done. That was evaluated and bid out early last year. Haas and Associates was the consultant for the sanitary district to handle all that work. And Ryan Laughlin is here from Haas to review that process, go through the project history status memorandum. There's a few different actions the board must take in terms of change orders, certificates of completion. We'll have Ryan go through his historical memo first, and then we've got a memo from sanitary district staff with potential recommended actions. So we'll turn it over to Ryan.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Al. So I'm assuming that you all have this memo in front of you. It's pretty detailed, 3 pages. So I will not belabor every sentence and every detail in here.
That's the
But I'll do my
highlight.
best to, just give you the most exciting parts. So as Al mentioned, the clearing project became necessary in December of 2023. Later than that, but as the project was sort of in its inception phase, it became clear that if the project was going to be completed in 2024, which obviously it wasn't, but that was the goal at the time, efforts would need to be made to clear the trees before a bat habitat prohibition period from like March 31st through October 1. So you can't clear trees during that period. So in order to beat that, a very urgent site clearing project was essentially put underway, and that's what we're talking about here now. That all kind of came together very quickly, early in 2024. By February 9th, 2024, not this exact board, but this board, approved the contract to Woodruff & Sons to go forward with that work, and then it was underway. And this is just kind of
Regarding under A2, so
the construction timeline, because this is something that this board probably, for the most part, wasn't really very much aware of or watching very closely, so the timeline I think is relevant. During that period, around February 27th, there was additional tree clearing that had to be added to the contract. That's one of the change orders, I believe, here that will need to be approved. That was to include additional tree clearing on the cemetery, the Swan Lake Memorial Gardens Cemetery property. If you don't know, there's a large pile of soil that has been taken out of the ground to make room for graves. And over time, it's accumulated to a very significant degree, and it's right in the way of where the sewer was. At the time, the mayor had intention of moving that entire mound to a different location, more than what was required for the sewer, but just thought it would be a helpful thing to do for the cemetery because they need more graves. Apparently people keep dying. So that was included as an extra. However, later on, that work was removed from the project because it was decided that maybe that wouldn't go through because of the budget shortfalls. That became clear later on. On March 30th, 2024, the contractor completed all the required tree felling, so that was one day before the deadline, just further kind of underscoring the fact that it was a very urgent project that had to be completed quickly, but they managed to do it with 1 day to spare. And then there was remaining work that needed to be done. Once the trees were down, that wasn't the end of the work. That was just the first deadline. The trees also needed to be mulched. You can't just leave them there. Some of the trees could be dealt with because they're not sitting in protected wetlands. Some of them were in protected wetlands, so they couldn't be dealt with, but the ones that were not in wetlands needed to be mulched, and that work wasn't completed especially promptly, but eventually it was by September 19th, 2024. So there was a significant delay there on the contractor's part in getting that work done, but finally they did do it, and then that kind of brings us to where we're at now. There's some final closeout work that needs to be done regarding change order number 1 and change order number 2. Acceptance and approval of certificate of substantial completion and final completion. So those things are here today for approval. I think you mentioned not going through them one at a time necessarily, but approving them sort of as one block.
Well, then, after the Housing Associates memo on the historical summary, we have a few different documents, the change order 1, change order 2, substantial completion, final completion, and then we have a memo here from Sanitary District staff to the Board of Commissioners. The title is MK's Tree Clearing Closeout Documents, dated May 23rd.
It's after the first section on Housing Associates. It's in the middle of the bulk here. It's got the light blue in the upper left corner, Mission City Sanitary District. Okay, you're getting close. Okay.
Okay, that's all right.
Right there.
Yeah, so there's 2, so we might have to go back a little bit on that one.
Oh, so this is 2 sets? Yeah. It's a lot of material. We're still getting it, so.
I'll catch up.
And the reason for that memo is, as Ryan explained, a lot of this work happened in late 2023, early 2024. So a number of the commissioners were not on the board at this time. And then also during the duration of this work, most of the Sanitary District administrative team, Public Works Director Wendy Vashek, our Plant Superintendent Rhonda Anderson, Business Manager Chris Yagelski, Attorney Harris, myself, were not here at the district at this time. But we were able to go back and look at archived emails from previous staff on the project. We're able to review contract documents and also meeting with Housing Associates regarding the documents before you today on the tree clearing closeout. The first order of business would be review of change order 1. Which is for additional staking work that the contractor had to do based on some of the project changes. That change order 1 is in the amount of $5,052, and staff recommends approval by the board of that change order.
All right, so let's take them one at a time then. Given the recommendation from Mr. Wallace, can I get a recommendation or some action from the commissioners?
We do. How much did it went from what to proposing to what amount? It's going from 765, is that correct? 767?
Well, the first one, that's on the Lincoln Avenue project.
Okay.
There are some documents preceding that for NPACE. And for that particular change order, the original contract price was $278,443.88.
Yeah.
And with the additional staking work of $5,000.52, that would bring the change order for change order 1 up a bit. So change order 1 is for the amount of $5,052 to increase the contract price for change order 1 from $278,443.88 to $283,495.88.
Okay, so it's not significant. Okay.
Yeah.
I apologize, go ahead.
No, that's exactly why you're here, so thank
There's
you.
a set of documents that relate to the Lincoln project, and then there's a similar set that relates to the tree clearing.
Okay.
All right, that's the pleasure of the board.
Move to approve change order number 1 to cover the additional scope items in the amount of $5,052.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
And then the second item we'd like to bring before the board, Mr. President, is change order number 2 for as-built quantity adjustments. So typically at the end of projects, we compare what we bid out for construction versus what was actually as-built. And as Ryan discussed, with some of the additional clearing regarding the spoil pile to Sanitary, required some additional clearing work there. Other decisions through the process reduced the amount of work in some areas. And when we went through the final tabulation of deducts for work that was not done, additions for work that was done, that resulted in a net increase to the overall cost of the project. That's what's documented in change order number 2. The total increase based on as-built versus as-bid, $16,446.23. So that would raise the final contract price from the newly adjusted $283,495.88, adding the $16,446.23 to a new final total contract price of $299,942.11. And reviewing all the different documents that we had access to, meeting with Housing Associates, staff would recommend approval of change order number 2 for the as-built quantities in that amount of $16,446.23.
All right, what's the pleasure of the board?
I move to approve change order number 2 for as-built quantity adjustments in the amount of $16,446.23.
Is there a second? No, second. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And then certificate of completion?
Yes, the next item is certificate of substantial completion. So there's 2 completion dates. One, substantial completion, that says the contractor has finished the vast majority of the work. So that's a contractual requirement to agree with the contractor that it's substantially complete. We have internal records and the records from Housing Associates that substantial completion was arrived at on March 30th, 2024. So we have the signed certificate of substantial completion documents and recommend to the board to approve substantial completion with the March 30th, 2024 date.
All right, so it is documented in our records relative to that it was complete.
Correct.
Substantially complete, excuse me. All right, what's the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion that we approve the certificate of completion with the March 30th, 2024 date.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Thank you.
And then with substantial completion, there's typically punch list items, a list of items that the contractor still has to complete. Housing Associates had transmitted that to the contractor. In the intervening time, the contractor was able to go out, complete all those punch list items. That was verified by Housing Associates. So to close out that contract, we need to approve a certificate of final completion. And based on House records, that would be September 19th, 2024. And again, district staff would recommend approval of certificate of final completion with the completion date September 19th, 2024.
All right, what's the recommendation from the board?
Make a motion that we approve the certificate of final completion dated September 19th, 2024.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. I think Tina kind of beat you out there.
Okay.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. And then
The last item of business on MP's tree clearing is with the 2 change orders the board approved tonight. We have the final pay request from the contractor. There have been a couple pay requests already that have been paid. So we do have a recommendation letter from Housing Associates that identifies the original contract value, the final contract value, which includes the additions of today's change orders. As we look at that total, Work completed store to date, $299,942.11. There's payments of retainage withheld. The final amount due to the contractor to close out MK's tree clearing is $38,316.46. And district staff would recommend approving that final payment, and that would close out all contractual documents on MK's tree clearing.
All right, so this is the whole project complete. Everything's done. It's been thoroughly reviewed. We're comfortable with the documentation relative to the process along the way. I know it's a lot of work relative to detail, and I'm glad we have the documents and documentation in place that shows that prudent actions were taken relative to this contract. So, and I appreciate your patience from House and Associates while we reviewed this to make sure that all the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed. So, thank you. So, can I get some recommendation from the board relative to accepting the final payment?
I move to approve Woodruff & Sons invoice number 81094 in the amount of $38,316.46 to close out the tree clearing project.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. A lot of work, but thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I'm assuming everybody's satisfied with the outcome?
Yes, tree clearing.
Even though the long delay in payments is something.
Tree clearing was done, which was necessary to get it to the next phase where we're at now with the construction of all the sanitary sewer. So it worked out.
Thank you. All right, so we have is there another related item?
Yes.
This is the Lincoln Avenue Sewer Replacement Project?
So in a similar vein, we have similar documents on the Lincoln Ave sewer project. And again, I think we'll let Ryan go through his project history and status memorandum for the Lincoln Avenue sewer project. He can review the timeline, contract administration, and then the staff has a similar recommendation letter at the end, but we'll turn it over to Ryan to go through some of the key points on Lincoln Avenue. Again, we're kind of going through this process since most of the board members were not here at the time this work happened, as staff was not here at the same time. So we'll let Ryan kind of give you an update on that.
Yes, so the Lincoln project basically amounted to a sanitary sewer replacement project and some additional streetscape type modifications, and then another project that kind of overlaid on that was a CCMG paving project, which happened at the same time but under a different contract, not through the sanitary district, but I think through the Board of Works at the time. So that was kind of the general concept of the project. That got underway in July of 2026, July 26, 2023. And the contractor in this case was Woodruff & Sons. Had won the bid, and that they mobilized to the site on October 2nd, 2023. Very shortly after they began that project, it became evident, based on when they excavated the road by Highway 12, that there was a collapsed sanitary sewer immediately adjacent to that project area that was not allowing the sanitary flow to make it through. So that's obviously not something that you want to allow to continue to exist. It was clearly an unforeseen thing, but at that time the decision was made that it should be replaced to fix that issue. And so that was later completed after the other work was done on the project, because it wasn't so urgent that it had to be done right that minute, but urgent enough that certainly you wouldn't want to just leave it and close up the project and walk away. So that work was added to the project, and that's one of the change orders that will need to be approved on here. By November 15th of 23, the contractor had completed installing the new sanitary infrastructure. They had not completed the sewer repair yet, but that was soon to follow. In December 4th, the contractor completed that repair work in Highway 12. So that essentially amounted to substantial completion of the project. And then on December 11th, all the other related project work was completed, thereby establishing the final completion date. So as you can see, it was a pretty rapid construction project. It was final completed in December 11th, 2023, and that we're still here talking about it today. So that's part of what's in this memo. There were some contract administration delays during the project. Woodruff and Sons had some staffing issues and Haas also had some staffing issues, and so there were significant delay in moving that close out of the project to completion. But then that's where we're at now, is getting this closed out. So there's a couple change orders on the project, one of which is change order number 1. I don't know if you wanted to speak about these in more detail, similar to the other project or not. I'm happy to go through them.
Yeah, I could go through them.
I think let's I'll do that, but to just clarify, part of the delay here was staffing Haas Associates as well as the Woodruff, or is it all, just for clarity for the record?
Absolutely. It was both, and Haas and Associates.
Okay, I just want, there's sensitivity to all this, so I want to make sure that we're fair with everyone involved. Okay, thank you.
So for change order number 1 under B3 of Ryan's memo, that is a change order to add $47,019.56 to the project. All that covers the additional sewer repair work that was deemed needed to be done once the construction project started. And then, jumping ahead real quick, for the as-built versus as-bid, we had a significant deduct, $92,000. So overall, if the board were to approve these change orders, the overall contract price is a reduction of about 12%. So before the board approves change order 1, adding $47,019.56 to the project, I wanted to make you aware that if that's approved, we'll be coming back for change order 2 to deduct almost $93,000. So there's no additional financial liability to the district if we approve change order number 1 in the amount of $47,019.56.
Why don't we do these? How about let's go to change order number 2 and then come back to number 1. You want to do it that way?
I would recommend against that.
Yeah. 1 and 2 systematically.
You don't like that, Tim?
No.
All right, whatever. Thanks. Go forward.
And I'll just add to that, amounts to like a 12% reduction in the price from what it was bid to what you ended up paying for it.
And the additional work to cover the collapsed sewer, right?
That's just how it all worked out. So
it sounds like a win overall versus the original plan.
Yes.
Yes. And for the record as well, all the funds have been paid to Woodruff and Sons for all this work at previous meetings. Since we did not exceed the original contract value, we were able to process contractor payments prior to getting here today. So we do need, though, board action on the change orders to be able to close out the project.
Okay.
The payments have been approved, yes.
Just let me be clear, you can't tell if there's a collapsed sewer until you get into it, right? Okay, just want to make that clear.
But if you include, you should change it while you're there, then coming back, that'd be the.
I got you, yeah.
Well, that'd be a lot more expensive to dig it up later, so.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I will say I was working for NDOT at the time, and I'm very familiar with the issues going on there with the sewer issues.
Right.
Okay, so with the clarification on can we get a motion relative to change order number 1?
I move to approve change order number 1 to repair the collapsed sanitary sewer in the amount of $47,019.63.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, so on to change order number 2, which you described briefly, but
Right, so in change order number 2, again, we're doing as built quantities versus as bid. And when we did that tabulation, we ended up with a deduction in cost of $92,895.85. A big portion of that, in looking at the details of the as bid versus as built, we had a significant amount of bituminous coated number 8 stone in the project, which we ended up not needing. We had 500 lineal feet of that. We did not need that at all. So that one item alone reduced the project cost by $56,000. So that explains kind of the high value of the $92,000. Also, we had estimated 250 square yards of sidewalk replacement, and we only ended up with 159 lineal feet. So that's why typically we'll always go back to as built versus as bid to make sure all the numbers line up. So in reviewing all the documents, staff would recommend approving change order number 2 for the deduct of $92,895.87. That results in a new final contract price, including all change orders, inclusive of number 2 of $719,891.57, which is the 12% reduction that Ryan talked about.
all right. What's the pleasure of the board?
I move to accept change order number 2 for the as-built quantity adjustment decrease in the amount of $92,895.87, making the final contract amount $719,891.57, a decrease of 12% from the bid.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you.
And then, Mr. President, 2 final things on Lincoln to close that project out completely. Like similar to MK Street Clearing, we have certificate of substantial and final completion. Checking the records of John Gorsica, our internal sanitary district engineer, we have documentation that substantial completion was arrived at on December 4th, 2023. So staff would recommend approval of the certificate of substantial completion for Lincoln Avenue with the date of December 4th, 2023.
All right, what's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion to approve the certificate of substantial completion as well as final completion. Can we do both?
You can do both. That's your
Both of
motion,
them at the
yes.
same time.
I will second that motion.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Just for the record, what's the date you were going to give it an overview for final completion?
December 11th, 2023. There was not much to finally complete once it was substantial.
All right, this is, I don't want to necessarily refer to this as a saga, but I'm glad we've got this complete and we're squared with everyone. I'm assuming everyone's satisfied. No. All right, well, thank you very much. A lot of work and I appreciate the due diligence on it. So.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, back to the agenda. We are at the Michigan City Sanitary Staff Monthly Reports.
First, I'd like to commend our staff for their extraordinary response to the storm that we had 2 weeks ago. It was more wind than it was water. There were 70,000 some NIPSCO customers out of power. We lost power here at the plant. Our operators here work 12-hour shifts. So they work 11 to 11. The operators that were scheduled to get off at 11 p.m. stayed over till about 4 in the morning, and the operators who were scheduled to come in at 11 came in early. They manually diverted water from the interceptor to our stormwater retention basin in order to protect the plant. And we were on the phone with NIPSCO explaining how we need to be priority for restoration of power, and waited until the power came back on, and then it came back on at about 1 in the morning, and then all of the operators, the extra operators, scurried around the plant putting things back to normal. But the maintenance staff went far above and beyond. Because we didn't have power at the plant, we had no communication with our over 40 lift stations. So they visited every single lift station to see if there was power. The ones that did not have power, they had portable generators pumping down the wells and then moving on to the next lift station. And they did that until 4:30 in the morning. And then they were at work the next day for their 7 a.m. shift. They worked all day, went home, got a couple hours sleep, went back out at 7 p.m., stayed out all night doing the same thing because there were still a lot of lift stations without power. They stayed until around 9 o'clock Saturday morning, and then came back on Sunday and continued the process. Through that all of that, we only had one SSO, and the reason for that is...
What's an SSO?
I'm sorry, it's a sanitary sewer overflow.
Thank you.
And there's water coming out of sewage, coming out of the manhole. And the only reason we had that SSO is because there were down power lines that prevented access to that lift station. And once we had access to that lift station, they set a generator there. So I just want to commend the staff. We don't have mandatory overtime because we haven't needed to. These employees volunteered to do all of this work, and we are very appreciative of their effort. It was pretty bad situation. It could have been a lot worse had they not done all of that work, and I just want to take this opportunity to commend them for their efforts.
Well, yeah, and I hope you extend the congratulations and thanks from the board also.
I sure will.
And we may want to consider some further communication with them too. So that's yeoman's job, and above and beyond the call of duty when they should have when we needed them. So.
So we did have, in relation to that SSO, a visit from ITEM today, and we explained the situation and the efforts on the part of the staff, and they were satisfied that we did all that we can do. They agreed, that it was a safety issue for the one lift station, and
well, that's an important thing too. You didn't say anybody got hurt. So.
No one got hurt. Okay. No, so they were satisfied that we did all that we could do during the aftermath of that storm.
Wonderful. Mm-hmm. That's wonderful.
Next item is we had a plant tour on April 25th from Marsh Elementary School, and now those third graders know that when they flush the toilet, the water does not go to the ocean. We also had a plant tour of 8th graders from Kruger Middle School on May the 19th, and those visits were well received. The teachers expressed that they want to come back, bring other classes. So we enjoy having the students here, explaining what we do here, why we do it, and taking them around the plant to show them our different process units. And the staff monthly reports are included in the report package.
Wonderful. I don't know whether comments from the commissioners. We're all very appreciative of the good work. People staying at home, they're worried whether their TV's on or not, and there's more serious things than that that need to be attended to. So congratulations, and sounds like an absolutely wonderful job. So
they did.
Appreciate that, and that doesn't happen without leadership internally. So thank you, Chris, and all your follow-up too, and Rhonda, of course. Thank you. Yes, sir, Al.
Mr. President, I got a couple of reports real quick under staff reports. If I could come up, and then
Sure.
I'm going to invite Becky Hammer-Lester from the USGS with me as well. She's got a quick presentation on, I'll get this hooked up for you, on the USGS stream gauge that we talked about last year. So if you might have to see the
card with your long left that.
Yeah.
So, before I speak on my official behalf, I would also like to say thank you to you and to the water board. I grew up with a well, so I'm not used to having water during a storm. Having no power for 18 hours and still having it water and sewer was great for me, and that was very exciting. I didn't care about my TV, I did care about being able to flush the toilet, so thank you. Yep. Let's see if that's gonna work.
Talk us out a little bit, USGS, what do you do, who do you work for?
Hello, I'm Becky Hammer-Lester. I work for the U.S. Geological Survey. Our office is over on Kemmel Road. My main office is down in Indianapolis. I work for the Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana Water Science Center, colloquially referred to as OKI, not Oklahoma, Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana. The Water Science Center works in water quality and water quantity throughout the entire nation and U.S. territories. And here in Michigan City, on Trail Creek, we have two stream gauges. One is on, I wrote this down and now it's not on this page for my notes. One is on Springland Ave and the other one is right by the left bridge, not left bridge, but the bridge in the harbor. And so the one on Springland.
The bridge is shown there in the harbor right there?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
So yes, so the one on the left is the Springland Ave gauge, and the
So
one on
that's
the
the
right.
Franklin Street Bridge, and the other one.
Oh, is that Springland Street?
Just north of Springland on the creek.
Yeah, straight north of Potawatomi Golf Course.
Gotcha.
And I don't know. The first thing I was going to ask is if you all are familiar with USGS and or with our gauges before I go into my spiel, because if you all know what I'm talking about already, I'll be briefer.
Just, why do you have the gauges and what are you measuring? So,
water. So our gauges here on Trail Creek, the one at Springland measures temperature and discharge. Discharge is the amount of water flowing past that point in the stream. Temperature is temperature. We also have a precipitation gauge there, but I'm not certain if the precipitation data is available to the public. At the gauge at Franklin Street, we have just discharge, and that is a very complex system because it responds to lake level and lake wind, and is not a straightforward discharge.
Get it out, right?
Yeah, it sloshes a lot.
One of my pressure systems modified that level a lot.
Yeah. From the perspective of why, we of course as scientists value the data in its own right. It's really valuable to know how the lake affects what is effectively a freshwater estuary in the form of the harbor. Additionally, I have heard from anglers and folks generally that they really appreciate the temperature data as part of the steelhead fishing and other salmonid fishing. Trail Creek, I was surprised and gratified to learn, is listed in at least one website as one of the top 10 Great Lakes steelhead runs. So people come from across the Midwest, possibly further, to fish in Trail Creek, and they use the temperature data in part to determine.
So we're in the top 10 in the whole Great Lakes region?
According to in fishermen, yes.
Oh.
So that was interesting and cool to learn. Those fish were caught in Trail Creek. Those are not just generic steelhead, they're Trail Creek steelhead. So that's, and then Michigan City Sanitary District is our funder for these gauges. And then I just wanted to give you that general overview and show you a couple of graphs. So, and some photos. The harbor site is beset with the problem of zebra mussels. They can cover the whole gauge, the whole sensor in a matter of months or weeks, and then you have to clean it off and try to get the sensor working again. Also, it's just a very interesting site. I know it's hard to see, but the middle of that graph is 0, and everything above that is flowing towards the lake, and everything below that is flowing away from the lake. And that's just over a period of about, I think, a couple of weeks on that graph. Let's see that on mine. Yeah, a couple of weeks. And so it just goes back and forth and up and down and all around. And then even in the winter, we have technicians making measurements by drilling through the ice on those winters when it's still cold enough to freeze, and then taking discharge measurements to make sure that that data is accurate and reflective of what's really occurring. I personally have not worked on the harbor gauge. I've worked at the upstream gauge by Springland Ave. And what I wanted to show you here was both that it's a long record. We really value our long temperature and long discharge records. In the USGS, we celebrate our centennial gauges, which are gauges that turn 100 years old. There's, I think, over 100 of them across the country at this point. Trail Creek is not quite in that storied camp yet, but we're hoping we'll get there one day. I suppose it'll be in roughly 1980 or 2089 if we make it that far. I wanted to show you just a few graph and photo pairs of discharge versus what the creek actually looks like. So on this slide and the next slide, the orange arrow denotes where 100 cubic feet per second is for different flow, and then the photo is of the corresponding time. So a low flow at Trail Creek is something like 50 to 60 cubic feet per second. Then a moderate high flow is in the 400 to 500 cubic feet per second range, and a very, very high flow on the bottom there is about 2,000 cubic feet per second. That had water up over the banks into the floodplain, covering quite a wide area, including into the golf course. This is also an interesting site because the lamprey barrier is right above it. I love going there because I get to watch the fish trying to jump the barrier, and hopefully no lampreys getting past. But we just wanted to familiarize you all a bit with what we're doing here and with both gauges, and let you ask any questions if you had any.
That's very interesting, in terms of, I guess managing a scarce resource, right? Yeah. And that's what we're about here, right? Quality of life as well as, the quality of our rivers and streams. And you can't manage stuff if you don't measure it, I assume.
Correct.
And we love our fishermen, and being a fishery here, I've had the opportunity to experience a little bit of fishing here and there, and I just love it. It's a great natural resource. The question I had relative to the salmon, I guess, and maybe the steelhead too, are they, I know we're stocking the lake, are they reproducing naturally in our creek or not? I know that has some waters of fluctuation, quality water, sediments. I don't know what.
I don't specifically know. I do know that if they are going up the streams, they are going with the intent to breed. Whether or not they are successful, I can't tell you. I'm very much not a biologist. Okay. I'm a geologist and hydrologist by background, so rocks and water life is a little more difficult. But I think if you're more interested, I work in the Lake Michigan Ecological Research Station, and their ecologist staff might know the answer to that question. Okay. Also, DNR, Indian DNR would be a good source.
Okay. That's curious. So, I don't know if anyone else has any questions, or even anybody from the audience have any questions.
Is the lamprey barrier working?
I believe so. It seems to be, and I have seen fish cross it, so it's serving its intended purpose and not blocking the fish. So that's.
But it's kind of fascinating to me, is because you can go down Springland Avenue and stand on a bridge and watch the salmon underneath. So
it's very cool.
Commissioners, there are two reasons I invited Becky here this afternoon. One is about August timeframe, we'll be coming before the board to consider renewing our contract for the stream gauge. It's in the area of $16,000 a year. So we wanted Becky to give a chance to educate the commissioners on what that investment brings us. There's no way the city or sanitary district could gather this data on our own. So just want to kind of educate the commission on the importance of the stream gauge, and then secondly, want to kind of underscore the importance of working with our federal partners and to continually support federal funding for the USGS as they work on these water quality issues
that impact our local economy. If we're not good stewards of Trail Creek water quality, that impacts the economic impact of fishing in the creek. So those are a couple of things we're going to be working on moving forward to strengthen those federal partnerships and partnerships with local watershed groups to advocate for how we can support economic input to the region kind of based on the fishing aspect of Trail Creek and Lake Michigan.
So to that point, the measurements are, this is flow and temperature, or is there other things you're measuring?
Not in Trail Creek. There are many other parameters that could be added. It would, of course, cost additional funds, and we'd be more than happy to discuss with you all if you're interested. The most common parameters we would add are dissolved oxygen, which speaks to the health of a stream, turbidity, which is the clarity of the stream effectively, pH, so how acidic or basic the stream water is, and I'm missing one, specific conductivity, which is how many dissolved ions are in the stream. Any or all
Future
of them.
consideration, but obviously we're monitoring very closely what we're discharging into the creek, so.
Yes, and I will add that one of the benefits of this flood data and the long record is if we do have a storm coming, you can look to our data to see what kind of flood impacts occur under what kind of rainfall conditions.
That's a big swing, I think you need to see the pictures, of course, when you big rains come through here, so.
Yeah, no, I thought that would be the most illustrative thing. I can show you, it gets warmer, it gets colder, but it overflows the banks. Everyone understands a flood.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Becky. Thank you. All right, so moving along, anything else relative to our monthly reports? Okay, thank you, Al. Thank you, Becky. Revenue and tax levy claim payments.
Yes, we recommend approval for our claims of $490,226.69, paid from our revenue and tax levy funds.
Thank you. So going back to the earlier line item, we got what we have in the bank, which is about $3.6 million. So it's $490,000 out of that. So what's the recommendation from the board?
Move to approve the total claims of $490,226.69.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Any anomalies you want to point out, Rhonda, or anything, or no? All right. All right, so it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. And then, let's see, old business, Michigan City clothing allowance update.
So a couple of board meetings ago, Josh Barnett was here to talk about the Centus website where our employees can purchase safety boots, high visibility clothing, warm jackets and such. And that website is now functional. When they first launched it, it was, there were some hiccups, but those issues have been resolved and it's now functional. And all of our employees can utilize their clothing allowance to purchase these items that they need for work. We do, for all the jackets and tops, we do the logos in-house. And so that is up and running, and we just want to give you an update on that.
So just for a little bit more color, I'm assuming if the employees like this, and it's operating well, and they enjoy wearing the clothing, or what? Give us a little on that.
The jury's still out.
It's an innocent question. I'm just curious.
Yes,
All right,
so the hiccups on the website were just resolved yesterday.
Oh, okay.
So we can get back to you on that.
All right. But you haven't had any generally negative.
Not that I'm aware
I
of.
would assume it's positive to receive, I would think, so.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so any other questions on the clothing allowance activity? All right, new business, project manual for utility emergency repairs.
Commissioners, during my onboarding meeting with Mayor Angie in January, we were challenged to look at best practices of other agencies of similar types, wastewater treatment plants, collection systems. To that end, we took some collection staff on a way to conference in Indianapolis to visit the Lafayette wastewater treatment plant back on March 4th, 2025. And during those meetings, we discussed how Lafayette Public Works responded to emergency utility repairs. And they informed us that in the city of Lafayette, they issue a project manual every year specifically for utility emergency repairs program. And that whole process is for the purpose of making sure they comply with Indiana code as it relates to how utilities and agencies can respond to emergency repairs. That involves naturally, in emergencies, you don't have time to public notice bids in the paper, go through a long 6-week-long process. So if certain conditions are met, if the request for work is made to at least 2 persons known to deal in that type of work, and the board declares an emergency declaration, there's an expedited process to do repairs within that legal framework. So we were provided the project manual from the city of Lafayette. Our consultants at Christopher Burke Engineering took the Lafayette manual, converted it to a Michigan City manual, and that's what we have in the board packet tonight. With red text, those are kind of the track changes that sanitary district staff made to conform to local hiring practices. And the main part of the manual is about halfway through. We have a listing of various equipment that emergency repair contractor might need in terms of earth moving equipment, excavating equipment, trucks, pumps, compressors, compaction equipment, and then in addition to that, we have a list of potential work classifications: laborers, pipe layers, operators, teamsters, foreman, superintendent. So the intent of this process, to be compliant with Indiana Code for emergency repairs, is to seek hourly rates from persons interested in doing this work for the sanitary district, both for equipment and manpower, and we'll have those rates on file. We're seeking a period of 1 year from July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026 for these unit prices to be in effect. If we were to run into a situation where we might have a cave-in of the sanitary sewer with the street caving in of an emergency nature, we can go to, in the future, this price information we have on hand, and then follow a procedure to instruct a contractor to do this work. In the memo provided in your board packet, kind of summarizing all this, we're working towards the process of presenting the draft manual to the board today. And if the board were so inclined, if the board can provide the authority for staff to finalize the project manual with the Harris Law Firm, and then potentially, once we work through any final revisions to the draft, potentially we'd be ready to advertise for bid on June 3rd and June 10th to request submittal of bids on these prices at our June meeting. Then if we do get responses back in the June meeting, then we could take that back to the board at the July meeting, and at that time have a standard operating procedure that we would work with Harris Law Firm on that would be able to guide staff in using these documents to respond to emergency repairs.
So you're going to come up with a fee simple for some process or use of some equipment that they put out. So I looked through this. It seemed like you had a lot of blanks relative to the dollars, the amount.
So that's what the bidders would submit to us.
But they fill out this with their bids, then you evaluate which ones, and then they're locked into whatever they bid to us.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
So we're seeking.
How did this figure out, like, we were setting prices and they agreed to comply, or, okay, thank you.
So we're kind of seeking the bids prior to the actual emergency work being done to expedite the situation.
Sure.
Because if we get a call and say there's a cave-in, street is closed because the sewer caved in, we need to respond immediately.
So you mentioned, I thought you mentioned board approves emergency action. I assume this is all internal.
Well, so as this process moves forward, that's what we're working out with Attorney Harris, how once we get these bids in place, we can come back to the board, and if we do an emergency repair, we have documentation that we sought at least bids, quotes from 2 people. And then we need a standard operating procedure that says, due to these emergency conditions, we've enacted and enabled the contractor to go out and do the repairs. And then after the repair is done, we'll have to come back to the board and have the board confirm.
Yeah, but the board's not authorizing emergency stuff. It's all set up in advance.
Yes.
When the emergency occurs and the staff says, go use one of these 2 contractors.
Correct.
They go.
The board does ratify it though.
Yes.
After that's done, they'll bring it back to
Afterwards,
the-
then it goes back, so.
And that's a separate standing operating procedure we'll have for you at the June meeting, how all that's going to work.
And then how does, I didn't read the provision in there. What about non-performance? A contractor in this deal doesn't show up, what happens then?
Yeah, then we'll have multiple contractors, perhaps, if someone's not available, to be able to find.
Right, okay, so.
We've not really had an issue with.
Okay, I was just curious, I just kinda.
It's a.
Somewhere in there though, you don't lose out because the company, followed the work guidelines of the manpower. That's what you're gonna run into.
You mean they won't be able to perform?
Yeah, they might acquire 2 operators and 2 laborers, but they bring in 6 laborers to do the other guy's job. And then you get out there and something happens. It's already an emergency, I understand, but there's guidelines to it.
Yeah, to me, it's a good preparedness action, but also to get ready for this, and hopefully we'll select good bidders on it and develop some track record of working with them, and as those issues come up. I'm sorry, go ahead, Joel.
I just wanted to ask a question just about the process. I think this is a great idea. It does allow us to get competitive pricing on the front end as opposed to the emergency come up and then you scramble to try to find someone who can do it and you're stuck with whatever price you get.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, I think it's good and it protects our interests. The part I'm not clear on, and I know we're going to work out more of the procedures of all this, is are we going so far as to have any of those contractors who respond, are we going to have them agree to a form of contract that the board approves so that when it is time to declare an emergency and we go forward, we already have that negotiated, similar to, and Rhonda, you know this, like the on-call contracts we have for engineering.
Right.
Will that already be done as well? Because I prefer it because it will make the process even more streamlined, and then we can include provisions like you were suggesting about minimum staffing requirements, safety, blah, blah, all that will already be in an agreement that they've agreed to as part of the process of being selected for the program. So.
Yeah, there is some language in the draft right now. We could review that and see if we need to make that a little more robust.
Okay, it just might make everyone's life easier if there's a pre-approved agreement as well, that's all.
And we do have performance and payment bonds as part of the process. So we'll see if there's additional items we need to put in there.
Yeah, just a standard form of contract like you would include with other bid documents. Also included would be the standard form of contract.
All right, so does the board have enough information to make a decision relative to moving ahead? Or maybe just so this, is there a motion to support the recommendation?
I'll make a motion to approve that we move forward on our project manual to receive pricing.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded, and then for the discussion, you're gonna come back with the actual, there's more approval that's in this process going forward. So this is just to get it started today. So
yes,
we still have the opportunity to say no or yes or whatever, so. All right, any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
And, Mr. President, I have one related matter to that, interestingly enough. Working with our city engineer, there were 2 items of an emergency nature that came up within the last 24 hours. So I wanted to kind of share that with the board. What's that one? And again, kind of referring back to Indiana Code 36.124-5 defines emergency situation that could not reasonably be foreseen and that threatens the public health, welfare, or safety and requires immediate action. Section -12-9 allows emergency contract by invitation, states that the board, upon a declaration of emergency, may contract for a public work project without advertising for bids. Bids or quotes are invited from at least 2 persons known to deal with this public work. And then also that requires the minutes of the board must show the declaration of emergency and the names of the persons invited to bid or provide quotes. So 2 items came up. First one is a storm inlet at the northeast intersection of Franklin Street and Valentine Court. Those are the photos on page 2 of the handout. There's a storm inlet where the riser rings appear to have failed. The inlet is now offset and sinking into the ground. Some of the asphalts have eroded away. So it's a safety hazard for vehicle traffic, and also you can see from the one photo it's right adjacent to a sidewalk crossing. So it's an emergency for both cars and foot traffic. So what we've done so far is the initial emergency mitigation is putting a construction barrel there to warn of the situation. Our final emergency mitigation would be if an emergency declaration is approved by the board, district staff will seek quotes from Woodruff & Sons, Reith Riley, and H&G Underground, all persons known to deal in the public work utility infrastructure repairs to repair the storm inlet. So that's the first declaration under consideration for the board potentially. And secondly, the last page shows some paving that was done on Franklin Street between 10th and 11th. There ended up with a 2-inch difference between final paving and our manhole lids in the driving lanes, so that presents a driving hazard. So far, we've mitigated this by having the water department who was working on this paving pave over the manhole lids, but leave markings where those are at. So the second declaration is if emergency declaration is approved by the board for us to raise these manhole structures, we would then again seek quotes from Woodruff & Sons, Reith Riley, H&G Underground for the purpose of raising the manhole casting and creating the flat level surface for vehicle traffic.
I'd like to add, Al, that the pictures, the top picture there was on Thursday, right after Reith Riley had finished paving. The barricades that you see at the upper left of the picture have been moved out to the outside of that lane. That's basically the Franklin construction zone that Flaherty and Collins is using. So that lower picture, that manhole is in the road street closure, the lane closure at Franklin northbound. The top picture, it's in the open lane right now. So that's going to be a maintenance of traffic issue. So yeah, that's a lot of work involved in what.
Well, that's what I was kind of heading in terms of, one of these doesn't look like an emergency to me, the other one does, so that's, who decides that call?
Yeah, I think there might be some benefit and cost per number, so if we can do a couple at the same time, we'll probably.
Okay, I get that one too, okay, thank you.
And if the board were inclined to move forward, I've already spoken with our internal sanitary district engineer, John Gorsica, to prepare drawing sketches, specifications to use for the request for quotes to make sure all the invited quoters would be bidding on the same scope of work, and we'll go down that route.
So if we pursue item B here, which we just talked about, it's A, manual for utility emergency repairs, this would have been covered under that in the future?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Gotcha. All right, so we already approved moving ahead. So this was just an example of why it's necessary, or do we need to do something like this?
Since we don't have the new process in place yet, we would need a declaratory resolution by the board that Both repair item 1, the storm inlet, and repair item 2, the sewer manholes, are declared as an emergency, and then that would allow emergency contract by invitation.
So, what's the pleasure of the board relative to declaring this an emergency repair?
I'll move to declare the repairs necessary for Franklin Street and Valentine Inlet and the repairs of the 2 manholes on Franklin Street between 10th and 11th as an emergency repair need.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? I'll just add to this, emergency versus emergency. But I'm anxious to get this process in place here because, having to wait a month between declaring emergency doesn't seem like necessary. You lose the urgency with that. So having this new process in place, I would assume it's in part a safety issue relative to, not just in part, substantially a safety issue relative to our community and the residents and people passing through. So,
Right.
Okay. So, any other discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
All right, Central District Vehicle and Driver Policy. Mr. Yagelski, I've seen you've delegated a lot of your responsibility to Ms. Anderson here, so.
She was the superintendent, sir, yes. A little change of hierarchy here, but Wendy, of course, is our.
You seem to be doing quite well, so I feel a little nervous about your job.
Well, first of all, from coming, you'll see in your packets of the new policy, when I came to the district last year, there was no written policy for getting involved in an accident here, and there was no set protocol. So it was kind of just a go as you are, and hopefully that they do the proper thing. So they were doing the improper testing, or they were doing a testing of DOT because we have a lot of CDL drivers, and they were going through a 3-day test, and then basically they would be downed for that 3-day period. So, and researching with DOT, and of course I used Attorney Harris and Attorney Nick Snow to assist me on this. With DOT regulations, we are allowed, and I think I addressed this in the past, to do a 2-pronged test. The first test would be that we give them the initial immediate result test, and that would be for drug and alcohol. And so by doing so, it gives you the authority to keep moving forward. Either they come back to work or they don't come back to work, we penalize them for that phase. Secondly would be, DOT requires a 3-day test, and that's a test that's sent out to a separate laboratory to be done. And so that by the 3 days, prior to that, they were just letting people go home for 3 days and waiting for the results. This way, I want to do both tests. They get both tests initially. They pass the initial first test. They take the secondary DOT test, which is a 3-day period. Then they are just used in the facility here in a non-driving position for that 3 days until the results come back from the laboratory. So with that, I created the policy last year. It began of a step-by-step procedure for everybody to follow, for supervisors to follow, for the drivers to follow. Of course, with my background with the police, you'll follow the police procedure basically as it goes through this. And again, with the testing procedure, the same way. There's also a difference between, I explained before, of an incident and accident, and that's addressed in there also, which an incident would be more of a personal property that we have here. So if it's our truck and we back up into our building, it's our accident, it's our loss, so it wouldn't be reported to the police, it would be held internally, and there's no need for a 3-day DOT test at that point. So all of that's been addressed, been vetted by the mayor, vetted by our HR, vetted by our public works director, and then of course both our attorneys. Everything's been approved. Actually, our HR and the mayor want to adopt this policy citywide instead of just district. But for right now, this will be a district policy that I'd like to introduce and ask for your approval to pass.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
I will move to approve the Michigan City Sanitary District Vehicle and Driver Policy.
I would second it.
Moved and seconded. I'll just comment, I'm doing a lot of commenting here tonight, but that's probably why we're here at 6. I read it and I thought there was a lot of good stuff in there. In essence, the employee is responsible for reporting more or less any accident that happens while they're on work time.
Absolutely.
Or if they're in a district vehicle.
Absolutely. And it's an immediate report, so it's a stay on the scene, call your supervisor.
Yeah.
We've had it in a past where they've come back, oh, by the way, I hit something about 2 hours ago. We don't allow anything like that.
I definitely see the need for this, and I think the value in terms of having the clarity of the expectation to employees good, so. All right, so any other comments, questions?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
I'm just curious, where is this going to be kept? Like now a record of this policy goes into what?
Into our personnel handbook, and we will give it a sign and a number once it's approved here. It's been approved by everybody else, and it was introduced to all staff yesterday. But then once it's approved by you, we'll get a specific number and put into our personnel policy handbook that we hold there for the Sanitary District.
So it's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Good work.
Thank you.
All right, Long Beach LLC.
So if you remember, we had the Long Beach LLC approach us last year. That would be Mr. Mike Ferguson, the attorney, who represents that corporation, Lakeshore Sewer LLC, in which they got a construction permit by the environmental IDEM, who gave them permission to proceed. After their permissions and the pre-permissions for Long Beach to go forward, they came to us for our permission. In November of 2024, we gave permission for them to proceed. They've run some hiccups in the meantime. So with those hiccups, they've approached IDEM again. IDEM then gave them additional time to get their ducks in a row and get started. They have a lot of properties that they have to address to get their line to our lift station. So it's a process on their behalf, not ours. So by them giving permission, they have given an extension to June 30th of 2026 to start their project. From that point, they have 5 years to commence and finish the project. I would like to ask that we just give the June 30th, 2026 date the same as IDEM has given for our extension to allow them to continue this project.
Yeah, because my sense is it's not holding us up any. We were getting quote beat up for indecisions or lack of decision making and or lack of clarity relative to what we were going to do with them. And so now we're ready for whenever they want to hook up, right?
Correct. We benefit 100% off of everything. They do everything. Right. They get all the permissions. They put the lines in. They basically own the sewer till it comes to our lift station. Yeah. Then there'll be a flow meter at our lift station. That flow meter then will gauge the amount of sewage that comes into our system, and then we bill them by such. Okay. So we just win the whole way around.
That sounds good. All right, what's the pleasure of the board?
Motion. I'll make a motion to extend the deadline.
Yeah, now you're second because he jumped.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm second again. Sorry.
It's been moved and seconded.
Yes, there you go.
Any further discussion?
What's that date again, just for the record?
June 30th of 2026.
Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's good to have a solid resolution to when somebody comes to us with an issue and we follow through it, actually make the decisions to get it done. So congratulations, good work. So, all right, and others involved too. Sorry, Tim, didn't mean to cut you short. So let's go. Hail damage.
Yeah. Hail damage. We had hail damage in May 7th, actually, of 2024. It affected all of our buildings that surround the whole plant. I had it assessed in June of last year by Travelers and Group Brothers through General Insurance, was now called High Point, and they all approved me going forward with getting the estimates. We got the estimates. Travelers was our carrier, our subcarrier, and Travelers then issued us checks for all of the damages. I then encumbered some of the money for the flat rubber roofing with Bottinger Corporation that did our lab and our digester buildings. So that was completed last year. Because of the extensive hail damage, no one was available to do roofs. So then I encumbered the money from those checks into 2025 so that the monies just transfers over, it's the same monies, so it doesn't have to go into a budgetary thing. So the money is sitting there accessible to us now to get the roofs done. I've then had recent estimates done by JB West, who is going to do 5 roofs total for us right now, which is still way under the amount of monies we received. So we're going to do that and progress forward. I'm changing the color though, so I wanted to bring that to everybody's attention because I got a lot of heat for painting the building blue. So now I'm going to make the roof blue. So this is the shingles that I'm going to do.
Nice.
And it's going to accent the walls that I had painted last year, which now everybody seems to like. So
good.
So I'd like permission to go forward because it's all been vetted by our insurance company to have any of the 6 contractors that are approved by them to use, and JB West is one of them. They've done a lot of our city buildings already. So I'd like to go forward with
So this isn't something we have to bid?
No. Yes, they have to bid, but we can just accept their
No, I
bid.
mean, we don't have to multiple bidders.
Correct, we have multiple bidders.
Okay.
We can just pick and choose the one we'd like.
All right. What's the pleasure of the board? Looking for permission to move ahead with repairing the pail from last May 7th, so.
Correct, and let it be blue.
I move to let the repair shingles be blue.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Local.
Opposed? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Is that somewhere else?
Sewer delinquencies. Wendy?
Yes, and thank you for putting up with my allergies. Clearly my medicine is wearing off. This is a new thing for me. I didn't have these allergies until this year. So just wanted to bring you up to date on sewer delinquencies. Again, we seem to have a process improvement theme going on here in the last few meetings, particularly today. And coming on board, I was also tasked with several administration items, and one of them was to pick up with our collections department and help our staff come to terms with some long outstanding debt. We have determined that the financial recovery of certain debts, including sewer billing delinquencies and other charges known as financial leakage, this being items that that are due to us that we can no longer recover, that we can't recover these. Some of these outstanding debts have been on the books for years, and we're talking about upwards of 80, 90, 100 accounts. And they've been sitting on the books for some time. Much of this debt, like I said, is several years old and continues to linger. And one of the reasons is that we can't collect this debt is basically in some, and I'll look at Jewel because Harris Law has been helping us here, is the fact that we didn't apply the appropriate procedures for due process to collect some of these debts, notification processes. A lot of this is administrative but yet important, because when you go to collect a debt you have to follow the rules, and if you don't you can be countersued, which is a real drag. So we have determined after going through this due process that as of March 31st, 2025, the district has $204,248 of financial leakage to be expunged as bad debt. We are preparing new processes and procedures so that this doesn't happen again. We're working very closely with our friends in the water department that handle all of our billings to make sure that we have the appropriate letters going out, the appropriate notifications. We're also working with Harris Law to determine what other things can we do that perhaps best practices from other districts about how we might be able to better prohibit finding ourselves in this position again, such as perhaps having a sewer deposit, being able to do shut-offs, so that the bills don't just continue to accumulate. And so that is the process that we are in. I will provide another update to the board in a full memo format for the June meeting. And I do believe by then we should have most of our recommendations in order how we want to move forward. And then if we need to do anything else, we'll also let the board know. So, Jewel, it's not indicated for board approval, but I need approval to expunge this debt, I do believe. Or is that an administrative action I can take?
No, you would need board approval, but we need a specific amount.
Okay.
The only thing that the board would approve is your request to write off X number of dollars.
Okay. Okay, so, and it didn't end up in the packet, and I apologize, but I have a memo here, but it's $204,248.
Perfect.
And your suggestion is it's uncollectible?
It's uncollectible, and that's been verified with Harris Law.
And that amount is consistent with what I've seen as well.
Yes.
Okay, so what's the pleasure of the board?
I move that we write off $204,248 of sewer delinquencies.
Any further, is there a second?
We can have a discussion after you second it.
Does this mean they didn't pay their water portion either, or they just didn't pay the sanitary?
That's interesting, because these are combined billings, but they have different tracks.
Yeah.
This is ours. In some cases, they paid water, some cases they didn't. Water has a deposit that they can collect, we do not.
Yeah.
The other thing I would add.
The water department got their money.
Yes, and since you asked it, but I do want to add, and I will also check in the last time we had the audit and make sure that's in the next memo. But in some cases, right now, our only recourse is to apply a lien. And in some cases, the cost of actually paying to apply the lien could be more than the delinquency itself.
And we've let the time lapse in order to properly following.
Yes.
So that's one of the bigger issues.
Yes.
And that was part of her overview that way back when, with these are old accounts, none of those procedures were in place, and it does require specific noticing in order to preserve that right to record a lien. And
So we don't really have any recourse.
We don't. We tried. I think we've looked at it up and down, and that's why we've engaged Jewel, and Nick Snow's been really helpful. And unfortunately, we don't.
Yeah, if there's any path towards collection, then we would not agree to have them on this list. But the only thing you can do about this delinquency is jump up and down. But outside of that, you don't have
There's nothing else we can do.
Gotcha.
And this just gets it off the books.
Okay.
And we clear that out, and then we begin anew and have a different way of approaching how we deal with it.
And hopefully the process going forward is automated to a point where we don't let deadlines pass. We know that the notice, the appropriate notice to the property owner is issued.
Tighter management, yes.
Yes, tighter management, yes.
Absolutely.
All right, so it's been moved, is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. We also have a recommendation from, I think it's from Mr. Yagelski relative to our, or maybe it's from Wendy, for a standing executive committee meeting at a half hour in advance of our normal 4 p.m. meeting. And we can take board action on that, or is it just public notice? But
just direct the staff to notice it that way going forward.
So just kind of appreciate your 2 hours today, actually 3 hours. But we're gonna lean on you for another half hour routinely here, so.
Mr. President, can I make one quick comment?
Sure.
Just on on the write-offs basically that you just approved. I know it doesn't feel good to do that, right?
No.
But there is some benefit to keeping your books cleared in that way. So for example, when we apply for SRF loans, right? One of the things they look at is, they look at a variety of things, but one of them is how much uncollected debt do you have on the books? So having that there will actually hurt us in our ability to get other funding, so there's some benefit to it.
Now I feel better, don't you?
No. I had to tell you something to make you feel
Thank you, Jewel. It's always good when you jump in and try to give us some better news. It is unfortunate, but these things won't happen again.
So just the question, so the write-off or bills within a certain period, accounts within a certain time frame?
Some of these accounts have been closed actually for many, many years. We can see it all the way back. I mean, these go back to 2020, and even then there was roll-up from previous because they just keep going. And so this clears our full deck.
So do we feel we have any bad actors that were easily identified?
So that, a lot of these are obviously residential properties, but there are business properties as well as apartment complexes. And so we'll be able, as our policies and procedures, look at doing those a little differently because unlike water, their accounts are tied to whoever the applicant is. For our sewer, it's the property owner. That's another difference in how we collect. So we'll be looking at that process as we move forward, as well as looking at a way to get ahead of this and to be able to possibly identify or offer ways to help people that might have some challenges in our community, particularly.
So this is maybe, this is a dual question to you, Wendy, we'd be better off to change our policy to have our bills tied to the tenant rather than the property owner.
By law, we have to go to the property owner.
We do. That's where the lien right comes in. So the legislature said, hey, here's a hammer for you to collect your on your bills, but the lien goes with the property.
Yep.
And that's the reason why all the noticing is tied to the property owner as opposed to water. They don't have that same hammer.
They don't
it's
have
a little
it.
different. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, any other discussion? Okay, last item I believe is our Sanitary District Organization chart.
Yep, I will go through this one quickly. Thanks for hanging in there, folks. As I understand it, this is the third iteration of the org chart since we've had the change. Chris, is that correct? I think it's the third. I will have you note that it becomes more streamlined with every change. Al, he's not here, but thank heavens for Al, who manages to do a lot of this for us. This change was these are just continuing to hone the organization, creating more of a streamlined process, particularly for me and the number of folks that report up to me. We're all still here. We're still doing our jobs, but we continue to try to make sure that we have clear lines of communication and reporting. You can see the mayor now at the top of the org chart. She's always been at the top of the org chart. You can see yourselves. Obviously, there's me, and then Rhonda, our plant superintendent, with all of the folks reporting under her. Chris, obviously, very much an important part as our business and facilities manager, and I will say also special projects manager. Nobody does good special projects quite like Chris, although Al's pretty good at it too. And really helping us as we continue with our refuse and collections efforts. That's an ongoing challenge, and we're facing it head on, and it's really important initiative from the mayor. And so that is, Rhonda, in case I missed anything, but the purpose of this really is just to continue to streamline how we do our.
But it also creates accountability and structure relative to, you know, who your boss is and who your boss's boss is. So if you have issues, you have room to remedy them.
That's correct. So my understanding is the board does need to approve the new organizational chart, but it's become part of the policies and procedures.
Okay, so what's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion that we approve the changes shown in the organizational chart.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Just one comment that it's a draft, so upon their approval, if they could have today's date.
Yep, and then we'll do that, and then it'll be
Yeah.
perfect, and it'll be posted.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. Progress.
Progress.
It's a long meeting, but thank you all for
progress.
hanging in there. Appreciate those of you in the audience that have attended and those of you that are supporting our activities. We got a good team here, and I hope you recognize all the effort that goes into these board meetings relative to making them a quality production and something that is, you know, we're trying to set a standard for ourselves, and we are open to suggestions on what we do better all the time. So we're open to compliments too. So.
Yeah, we'll take those too.
All right, so is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.